Discover the heartwarming moment a cop challenges a colonel. You won't believe what happens next. Officer Jake Thompson sat at the counter of the Greasy Spoon, the aroma of fried potatoes mingling with the sweet scent of pie. He shared laughter with old friends, exchanging tales of late-night shenanigans and community heroics. But everything changed when his radio buzzed to life, piercing the cozy hum of the diner. Unit 7, WVE got a disturbance downtown. His heart raced. Willow Creek was usually peaceful, and disturbances were rare. As he pulled on his uniform, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Like his single mother had always told him, "You're meant to protect those who can't protect themselves." She had worked tirelessly to make ends meet, instilling in him a fierce pride in serving his community. Downtown was different from what he remembered. Curious eyes watched as Colonel Richard Blake, a once hero of their small town, stood beneath the flickering streetlight. The colonel's reputation had crumbled recently, the weight of corruption accusations hanging heavily in the night air. Whispers filled the space, weaving a complicated web of loyalty and betrayal. "Jake, glad it's you." Blake's voice trembled slightly, memories of valor clashing with the reality of his present. "I need to talk." Jake clenched his jaw, feeling the pressure. "You know what they're saying, Colonel. They don't trust you anymore." His heart ached for the man who once inspired so many but felt the collective disillusionment from his neighbors, faces he knew well. "Hell, I fought for this town." Blake's voice cracked, desperation seeping through. "I sacrificed everything." In that anguished moment, Jake felt the war within himself. How could he confront the man who had once stood as a pillar of strength? Before he could respond, his phone buzzed again, news of an impending storm. Flash floods were expected. Unity was essential, he realized, but how could he band those divided by doubt? He looked around. Determination flickered in the faces of the townsfolk, who might be quick to judge, but would always rally when their lives were on the line. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake turned back to Blake, his heart pounding. Something unexpected ignited within him. "We're facing something bigger than both of us, Colonel. This storm, it's not just weather, it's our community." In that moment, as thunder rumbled above them, Jake and Blake began to share stories. They tied their pasts together, moments of pride embedded in their hearts, the meaning behind service and sacrifice. They laughed and fought against the fast-approaching storm, realizing how connected their struggles had always been, a shared burden of what it meant to protect one's home. But just as a glimmer of understanding formed, a figure emerged from the shadows, another former soldier, clutching evidence of Blake's wrongdoings. Outrage rippled through the crowd, shattering any newfound peace. The question slammed into Jake's mind. Could loyalty survive the truth, or would their community be left shattered? Could one night change everything? And in that moment, amidst the brewing storm and rising tempers, Jake knew they stood on the brink of transformation. Would he embrace justice and loyalty, or would he see his town unravel? The stakes had never felt higher. A tense stillness blanketed downtown as whispers transformed into an unsettling murmur. Jake's instincts kicked in. He knew he had to act before the situation spiraled out of control. He felt the eyes of the crowd, sharp as daggers, filled with questions and judgment. Would they turn on Blake? Or would they stand with the colonel who had once led them through their toughest battles? "Everyone, calm down," he called, his voice cutting through the tension. He took a step closer to the crowd, planting himself firmly between Blake and the townsfolk. "We need to talk this out, not attack each other." But the soldier with the evidence, Sam, stepped forward, anger radiating from him. "We're done talking, Jake. Look at him. He has been lying to us. He has been using our trust." Jake's heart sank at Sam's words. He knew Sam had once admired Blake. "Settle down, Sam. We all know Colonel Blake has his faults, but this isn't the way to handle it." In that moment, he felt the pressure building, not just from the storm above, but from the turmoil around him. Blake's face was pale, his eyes darting between the accusations and the worried faces of the townspeople. "I've made mistakes, yes," he said, voice trembling. "But I did it for you. To protect us. We need to band together, especially with the storm coming." "Protect us?" Sam snorted, waving the evidence. "You've betrayed us. We need to protect ourselves from you." Jake took a deep breath, his mind racing. Was there a way to turn this into something constructive? What if we focus on what's really at stake? He asked, hoping to redirect the raw energy pulsating through the crowd. "We're facing a storm that could destroy homes and lives. The truth may hurt, but we need each other now more than ever." The threatening rumble of thunder echoed behind him, intensifying the moment. Slowly, he could see some faces softening, the anger replaced with concern about the storm's looming arrival. He turned to Blake. "Collaborate with me, Colonel. Let us address the issues head-on, but let us also prepare our town." Blake took a step forward, his voice steadying. "I'll face the truth, but I need your help, Jake. Together, we can unite this town. We can show them that even when trust is broken, we can rebuild it." A flicker of hope ignited, but the anger had not fully subsided. Some in the crowd still looked skeptical, arms crossed, faces set. Jake felt a surge of determination. "We can stand divided, but the flood won't care about our grievances. It will come, and it could destroy all of us." In the silence, a younger resident, Emily, her eyes wide with fear, finally spoke up. "What if we combine our efforts? We can organize a shelter or help those who will be affected. We can't let the storm win." Jake turned to her, grateful for her clarity. "Thank you, Emily. That's exactly it. Let us rally together. Colonel Blake and I can help coordinate while you all gather supplies and prepare." As they began to organize, the tension in the air shifted. People slowly stepped forward, ready to help. It felt like their community could find common ground despite the turmoil surrounding them. Hearts that were once hardened began to soften, but Jake knew that healing wouldn't come easily, it would take time. Then, just as he began to feel a flicker of hope, Sam slammed the evidence onto the table, eyes ablaze. "You think this will all go away? The truth is out. What happens after the storm?" Jake's heart raced again as he caught Blake's eye. The storm was fast approaching, both in the sky and within their community. "We have to tackle the truth, but first, we need to survive this storm together. If we don't unite now, we might not have a town left to save afterward." With determination mixed with uncertainty swirling around him, Jake faced the crowd once more. "Will you stand with us and face what comes together?" The answer held the weight of their future. Would they find strength in unity? Or would secrets once buried pull them apart even more? As the first droplets of rain began to fall, the determination in the air felt electric, yet Jake couldn't shake the sense that this was just the beginning of their struggle. Then, in the distance, a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, foreshadowing a storm beyond the weather, a battle for trust that was waiting to unfold. Jake's heart thudded in his chest as a mix of anticipation and dread washed over him. The crowd was still, as though collectively holding their breath, awaiting a decision that could change everything. Rain began to patter softly, like a gentle whisper, but everyone stood frozen, lost in the battle that was unfolding. Blake stepped closer to Jake, his expression one of desperation. "I can't do this alone," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the distant rumble of thunder. "They won't believe me, not after what Sam showed them." Jake glanced at the people gathered around. Their faces were etched with worry, anger, and betrayal. They were a community teetering on the brink, and he knew they needed something to believe in. "You're not alone, Colonel," Jake said firmly. "You have us. But it's time to be honest with them. All of them." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Blake's face. "What if they won't listen? What if I lose them for good? Then we will work harder to earn that trust back," Jake replied, his resolve growing with each word. "You need to own up to everything, and we start from there." As more rain fell, the crowd seemed to lean in closer. They were ready for answers. Jake could feel their eyes on him, pushing him to keep going. "This storm is just a taste of the chaos that could come if we don't deal with what is happening right now. We all love this town and want what's best for it. We need to show them that we can rise above this together." Jake turned back to the crowd, forcing a smile despite the weight on his shoulders. "Let us give Colonel Blake a chance to speak. Let him clear the air. If we want to prepare for the storm, we need to tackle the truths among us first." Sam's face twisted with frustration. You really think that's enough, Jake? Words 1T changed the lies they've lived with. Jake felt the heat of Sam's anger, but stood resolute. Words can start a conversation. Let Blake talk. Isn't that what we're asking for? There was a pause, tension crackling through the air. Finally, a few heads nodded, uncertainty mingling with curiosity. Blake took a deep breath, gaze focused on the town he had dedicated his life to protecting. I know I have let you down, he started, his voice steadying as he met the eyes of his town. I've made mistakes that I cannot excuse. But everything I did, I thought was for your safety. I thought I was protecting you. The crowd remained silent, absorbing his words. I never meant for it to come to this, he continued, regret heavy in his tone. But I understand why you're angry. I understand you feel betrayed. You have every right to question me. Sam interjected sharply. You expect us to just forgive and forget? No. I expect you to hold me accountable. Blake snapped back, the fire in his voice unmistakable. But if we focus on this anger instead of what's coming, we could lose everything. It's time to act, together. A few murmurs spread through the crowd, bewilderment, hesitance, but also hope. Jake sensed the shift, the possibility of healing beginning to emerge from the cracks in their community. Then, just as hope flickered like a candle in the wind, an ear-splitting crack of thunder reverberated through the air, shaking the ground beneath them. The tension shattered like glass, and everyone snapped their heads toward the sky. A torrential downpour swept through the town, drenching the streets and flooding the air with urgency. Panic surged as people rushed to find shelter and safety. Jake grabbed Blake by the arm. We need to move, now? This storm is more than just rain, it's a wake-up call. But as they turned to run, Jake's heart dropped. From the corner of his eye, he saw something, the evidence Sam had slammed down moments ago, lying forgotten in the mud. Its contents still held the truth they needed to confront. With one last glance at the escaping crowd, Jake knew what had to be done. They couldn't just run. They had to face everything waiting beneath the surface, even as the storm raged on. As the wind howled and the rain poured, Jake felt a strength inside him swell, a resolve to face the storm and uncover the deeper truths that threatened to unravel them all. But would they be able to confront the secrets hidden in that evidence? Or would it only push them further apart when the winds died down? Jake took a step back, his mind racing. The evidence, tangled in the mud, seemed to call to him. He knew he couldn't just leave it there. This was a piece of the puzzle that could either save them or shatter them completely. Blake, we can't leave that behind, Jake shouted, his voice barely cutting through the roar of the storm. Blake hesitated, torn between the safety of the crowd and the urgency of Jake's plea. We'll come back for it, he insisted, but Jake could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. No, we need to face it now. Jake stepped away from Blake and trudged through the rain-soaked ground, mud splashing up around him. The world blurred in a mix of rain and emotion as he reached for the evidence, feeling the cold water seep into his clothes, mixing with his mounting tension. He found the scattered papers in a small device, its screen cracked but still lit. His heart raced as he flipped through them quickly, the implications crashing down like the storm above. This was not just about Blake's secrets. It was about the community's safety. About trust. Jake, come on, Blake urged, glancing back at the crowd with worry etched on his face. They were dispersing, people shouting over the thunder, scrambling to find shelter. But Jake couldn't look away from the damning pieces before him. Do you see this, Blake? They need to know the truth, all of it. Jake shouted, shoving the papers into Blake's hands. We can't sweep it under the rug like it never happened. The town deserves to hear the whole story. Blake's grip tightened around the papers, and the weight of responsibility settled heavier on his shoulders. You're right, he admitted slowly, his eyes glazed with realization. But what if it destroys them? Jake felt a pang in his chest at the uncertainty that lingered in Blake's voice. Then we rebuild. Stronger. But we can't let fear rule us anymore. A flash of lightning illuminated Blake's face, revealing a mix of anger and regret, but also something else, determination. All right, he said, his voice stronger now. Let us do this together. The two of them stared down the growing chaos around them. Blake raised his voice, steady and loud, addressing the scattered townsfolk. Listen up, everyone. I know you're scared. I've made mistakes. But it's time to confront the truths that affect all of us. Jake noticed heads turning, a few people pausing in confused disbelief. Sam pushed through a group, eyes blazing. You really think after everything, people will just rally behind you? Maybe not everyone, Blake admitted, but we owe it to ourselves to try. We owe it to this town. With that, Jake felt an overwhelming wave of hope wash over him. This was their chance not just to face the storm outside, but to face the storm within their community. As everyone began to gather again, drawn by Blake's commanding presence, Jake's heart raced with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Perhaps this storm could cleanse more than just the physical dirt. Perhaps it could wash away the lies holding them back. Look, Jake interjected, pointing to the papers. This isn't just about blame or anger. It's about the well-being of each person standing here. We can't afford to protect ourselves from this truth. It might hurt, but it's necessary. The crowd was quiet now, the rain pounding down like a drumbeat. Faces showed a mix of curiosity and dread, every expression a crack in the wall built from years of unspoken secrets. Blake drew a deep breath, clearing his throat. Let us get everything out in the open. You deserve nothing less. Nothing more. Jake stepped closer, feeling the pulse of the crowd around him. They were standing at a crossroads, waiting, just like him. Would they break apart or join forces in the face of unity? But before they could move forward, an ominous low rumble echoed again above, sounding like a distant warning. The weather was only going to get worse. Jake, I can see the storm coming, Blake said, worry breaking through his bravado. We need to act fast. If we wait too long, it might be too late. Jake nodded, knowing they needed to muster the courage to face not just the downpour, but the truths hidden behind all those years of silence. And with urgency bubbling beneath the surface, he understood they had only scratched the surface of the storm brewing within their hearts. The moment was ticking away, and as rain soaked through to their bones, they stood on the precipice of revelation. What truth would unravel next, and how would it change everything they thought they knew? Jake felt the weight of the crowd's gaze as he stood shoulder to shoulder with Blake, surrounding them in a blend of uncertainty and desperate hope. The wind whipped around them, the rain mixing with the tension hanging thick in the air. It was a moment where everything was poised to change. Blake! Someone shouted from the back, a woman with tears tracing lines through the mud on her face. Are you sure about this? What if it shatters us? Blake locked eyes with her, his brow knit with concern, yet there was an intensity in his gaze that demanded attention. I know it's scary, but we have to face the truth, even if it hurts. We can build from the aftermath together. Jake could feel the fear ripple through the crowd, but there was something else too: curiosity, perhaps even excitement. He knew they were looking for a reason to believe, a reason to unite instead of divide. They needed a spark, and he hoped they could provide it. With a deep breath, Blake stepped forward. Okay, listen. I've kept things from you all. Things that could have hurt you. But I promise I've changed. I want us to be better. There was murmuring now. Some were shaking their heads. Others were slowly nodding. Better how? Sam shot back, narrowing his eyes. By laying everything bare? What if it tears us apart? Jake, feeling the heat rise in his chest, cut in. If we keep hiding, we're only going to fester. It's not about blame. It's about healing. We can't move forward until we address the past. Let us show each other what trust really means. As the words left his mouth, he could see those in the crowd leaning in closer, holding on to hope like a fragile thread on a stormy night. Their eyes searched for assurance in Blake's expression, and Jake could barely contain his own hope bursting forth. They were ready, and it felt electric. Suddenly, a flash of lightning lit up the sky, creating a momentary tableau of faces framed in fear and anticipation. And in that stark moment, Jake thought of all the hesitations and doubts that might have kept them silent. This was their chance to take a stand. All right, Blake said slowly, collecting himself. Let us lay it all out. But I need you all to listen without judgment for a moment. Hear me out first. With the crowd's attention firmly on him, Blake began sharing, his voice steady but vulnerable. He spoke of the secrets he had tried to bury, the fear that had kept him from being open with the community he loved. Each revelation seemed to resonate, echoing unspoken truths shared by others in the crowd. Jake felt a mix of sadness and relief as the weight of those hidden burdens began to lift. He watched faces soften, empathy blooming as Blake laid bare his mistakes. And one by one, People began to share their own stories, the fears that had haunted them, the pain they had been too afraid to voice. For every painful truth, Jake felt a flicker of something akin to hope. Perhaps by displaying their vulnerabilities, they could crumple the walls that had long divided them. What had started as a storm threatening to drown them turned out to be a catalyst for healing. But the storm still raged outside, rain pouring heavily, with thunder rumbling in agreement to the chaos they were unleashing. The tension surged around them, amplifying every whisper, every nod of understanding. Just as Blake reached a particularly raw moment in his story, the ground shook and the power flickered briefly, a reminder of the turmoil occurring beyond their shared moment of courage. "Blake, we need to move fast," Jake screamed over the din, adrenaline spiking as he sensed the atmosphere shifting. What comes next might be the hardest part. As people finished their confessions and the weight of shared truth pressed in on everyone, Jake's heart raced. What would it take to turn this raw honesty into the unity they desperately needed? Something had to give, and with storm clouds luridly looming, it was clear that the reckoning wasn't over just yet. Would the community band together, or would the deluge of honesty wash away everything they had known? The crowd was electric now, their breaths held tight as Blake calculated his next words, the rain drumming heavily, as if it were an audience in its own right. He looked from face to face, searching for strength in the eyes of those who had once followed him unconditionally. They needed to break through whatever barrier had built up between them over seasons of silence. "I need to announce something," Blake finally said, with the gravity of a confession, "something I've kept from each of you." He hesitated. This was no small secret. It was the kind of truth that could scorch relationships down to their roots. Something that could change everything. He continued, his voice softer now, but piercing through the chaos surrounding them. 5 years ago, I made a choice. It was wrong. I thought I was protecting you, but instead, I put us all in danger in more ways than one. Jake felt the atmosphere shift, heavy with trepidation. Those who had once considered Blake a lighthouse now appeared lost at sea. "What do you mean?" Someone called out, the tension punctuating the chaos. "It was never just a simple mistake. It was a lie that bred more lies," Blake admitted, gulping as he pushed through the emotional wall. "When the city faced those layoffs, I was aware of the impact. I had insider knowledge that day everything changed for us. But instead of being honest, I buried it. I wanted to shield you from the pain." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Shock transformed their expressions, yet Jake glimpsed flickers of understanding too. Blake's vulnerability unveiled a raw truth, the fear of failure, the weight of leadership. These feelings anchored them all in shared humanity. What could have been a chance to fight together turned into silence and division, Blake confessed, his voice barely rising above the storm. He looked down, shame evident in his stance, and Jake felt it too, the tightening in his chest, as the implications of betrayal hit hard. But amid the shock, there was movement. "You didn't have to carry this alone," Mary called out. Others echoed similar sentiments, voices rising as people pushed through feelings of betrayal, frustration, meeting compassion. "Blake, you were trying to protect us," shouted Sam, his voice now softer. "But maybe we can protect each other rather than hide." Jake's heart raced as he listened. This was what they needed, a call to action. If we embrace everything, the hurt and the healing, we can reclaim our power. "No more secrets," Jake cried, bolstered by the swelling sense of community. And just as those words left his lips, a crack of thunder seemed to mesh perfectly, reverberating with the cadence of new resolve. The storm outside was fierce, yet inside, light was breaking through. It was as if the clouds were parting just a bit, allowing a hint of clarity. "Let us stand together," Jake urged, his voice unwavering. "Let us embody the promise of what we can become. We owe it to each other. If we fall apart, it won't just be Blake who pays the price." He could see them nodding, the community uniting as if acknowledging the fragile layer of trust they were beginning to reconstruct. Hope flickered like the faintest candlelight amid the storm's fury. But just as the crowd began to glow with renewed courage, a violent gust of wind blew through the makeshift gathering, snuffing out several nearby lanterns, darkness swallowing their light. All eyes turned to the storm, and uncertainty cracked the fragile bond they had started to build. "What if we falter again?" someone murmured, fear painting their voice. Jake felt panic ripple through him. Would the past grip them once more? Or were they truly ready to face what lay ahead, together? The answers loomed like thunderclouds, heavy and threatening. And yet, as the wind howled outside, Jake whispered a silent prayer. Perhaps the next truth they would confront was one that had lived within each of them all along: the battle against doubt. How far could they go if they truly trusted one another? Was this storm their end or their beginning? The wind howled louder, as if it echoed the very fears swirling in the hearts of everyone gathered there. Jake could feel the weight of it, pressing down on his shoulders. They had come so far, yet it felt like one gust could throw them all back into the darkness of mistrust they were fighting so hard to escape. Blake raised his hand slowly, and for a moment, the crowd fell silent. "I know I've let you down," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but the honesty seemed to cut through the chaos. "I let my fear dictate my actions. But this is our chance to change things, to grow beyond what has happened." Mary stepped forward, arms crossed, brows furrowed. "You think just saying you're sorry is enough? You kept us in the dark, Blake. We lost faith because of you." Her voice trembled, but it held a weight of truth that resonated with many. "I know," Blake replied, remorse heavy in his tone. "But let us use this moment to turn that pain into something meaningful. We need to talk, to be transparent, and to decide what comes next. I can't lead you through this storm alone." Jake could see the rage mixed with sadness dance in the crowd, faces illuminated by flickering lanterns struggling to stay lit against the storm. Each person seemed to wrestle with their emotions, their hesitations weighing them down. "Blake's right," Jake exclaimed, raising his voice once more to pierce the tension. "We've been shattered apart by secrets and fear. But right now, we can choose to recognize that fear, to face it head on. Together. If we fall united, but we owe it to each other to try." A murmur swept through the crowd, hesitant but growing. "We can't just walk away again," someone shouted from the back, almost pleading. "Exactly," Jake encouraged, hope flickering inside him as if it could take physical form. "What if we shared our fears, our doubts? What if we laid bare not just the hurt, but also the resolve? We can pave a new path, one born from our mistakes." Are we really ready for that? Mary's skepticism mirrored the feelings of many, a challenge hanging in the air. Yet even she seemed to ponder the possibility, tentatively lifting her chin. "I think we need to be," Blake replied, the storm lashing against the building intensifying, almost as if nature itself awaited their decision. A few people shifted closer together, some clasping hands, old friendships rekindling, warmth beginning to seep back into their group. Jake spotted emotions flickering across familiar faces: curiosity, hope, a screaming desire for connection. "I don't want to keep doubting," one voice called from the edges. "We've been scattered, but maybe we can come back together if we can trust each other again." Jake felt the knot of tension loosening, a small flame igniting in the center of the crowd. "Let us build that trust step by step, starting with us all being real, exposing our fear, our anger, everything. We face it together, or we don't do this at all." As the rain lashed down harder, Jake felt the moment shift. They were moving further from the shadows of blame, together confronting the storm that raged within and outside. What followed was tentative dialogue. Bit by bit, names were called, histories were revealed, fears were aired. Each revelation felt like a clap of thunder, ricocheting through the crowd. They were slowly rediscovering one another. But just as the pent-up emotions began to churn towards understanding, a flash illuminated the sky, a strike of lightning tearing through the night, striking a nearby tree. The crowd gasped collectively, the moment frozen in time, and an overwhelming sense of fragility cracked through the hard-won ground they had begun to forge. "Are we really going to let a little thunder intimidate us again?" Jake shouted, barely able to raise his voice over the clamor of wind and rain. "We didn't come this far just to back down." The urgency surged. It was a collective challenge summoned from each heart. And in that fierce exchange of doubts and bravery, they finally crossed the threshold, the turning point, and Jake realized they were not just battling against an outer storm, but each inner battle, whispering for them to hold on to one another amidst the chaos. The moment was here. But would they stand tall as the world outside raged on? Would they take that final leap together into the unknown? What would be the price of their fragile courage? The rain poured down in sheets, soaking the crowd, as if the heavens themselves were washing away the wounds of the past. Jake could feel the tension start to shift, a transformation sparking in the air like the electric charge before a storm. He caught sight of familiar faces. Some were painted with resolve, others with still lingering doubt, but hope began to glimmer amidst the chaos. A collective breath was drawn, and Mary, who had been the most vocal about her skepticism, took a step forward. "Okay," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I'll go first. I think we all need to hear this." Jake's heart raced. Would they follow her lead? As she looked into the faces around her, he could see her courage ignite something in the crowd. "I was so scared. Scared of losing you all, scared of everything falling apart." She hesitated, then continued, "I let that fear make me distant and cold. I didn't reach out when I should have." A few murmurs erupted from the group, but the tension began to melt, revealing a deeper honesty underneath. One by one, they shared their fears, exposing everything: their doubts, their regrets. The dam that had held their words, their pain, began to crack. Next, a man named Liam spoke up, his voice raw. "I was angry at Blake for how everything unfolded, but I was angrier at myself for not being there for you all." He clenched his fists, glancing at Blake. "I'm still angry, but I realize I need to let that go. I want my friends back." Jake felt a wave of energy wash over them, connecting the crowd, making them more than just individuals lost in the storm. Each story pulled them closer together, a tapestry of threads finally stitching back into place. Then, it got personal for Jake. He took a deep breath. "I was afraid I wouldn't be enough, that I would ruin everything, that my voice wouldn't matter." The storm seemed to hold its breath, drawing in every soul, eyes fixed on him. "But standing here, seeing all of you, I feel it. We need each other. I don't want to live in fear anymore either." As he spoke, he saw heads nodding, some wiping away tears, others breaking into small smiles. It was a beautiful and painful realization: they weren't alone. They had each been carrying their burdens alone for too long, but there was strength in unity. The rain raged on, but for the first time that night, Jake felt warmth. They were weathering a storm together, and it felt more powerful than the gale surrounding them. Conversations sparked into life, people sharing stories of joy and hurt, laughter mixing with tears, and soon they were just a collection of souls searching for solace and strength. But just when Jake thought they had turned the corner, a deep rumble of thunder rolled in, a reminder of the tempest outside. The crowd hushed momentarily, glancing nervously at one another. Would the storm dampen their newfound courage? Before Jake could even respond, a haunting wail pierced the air, a sound unlike any he had ever heard. The collective fright surged through the group, faces blanched in fear. They turned as one toward the source of the sound, hearts pounding in unison. What was that? Someone whispered, a tremble in their voice, casting doubt once more over the fragile hope they had just built. Jake felt the urgency rise again, an instinct to protect and unite. "Whatever it is, we face it together. We want to let fear creep back in now." But as they stood, hesitantly moving towards the sound, Jake's heart hammered against his chest. Was it a sign that their courage was about to be tested yet again? With bated breath, he followed, the depth of uncertainty spiraling within him. Whatever lay ahead, could they truly stand together through it all? The wailing grew louder, wrapping around them like a chilling blanket. Everyone hesitated, glancing at one another, uncertainty washing over their faces. The rain continued to pour, mingling with the adrenaline coursing through Jake's veins. He couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to unfold. "Stick together," Jake shouted, his voice rising above the clamor. He didn't want fear to draw them apart now, not after they had just started to mend their fractured relationships. They moved closer, a cluster of anxious hearts battling a storm both outside and within. As they edged forward, the sound transformed, shifting from a haunting cry to a series of distressed shouts. "Help! Someone help!" It was clear now someone was in trouble. Jake exchanged fearful glances with Mary and Liam. In that moment, they understood the urgency behind their shared bravery. It wasn't just about facing their own fears anymore. It was about helping someone else. "Let us go," he urged, taking a step towards the direction of the voice. The others followed suit, their hearts pounding not only from anxiety, but from a rising sense of purpose. They navigated through the rain, their eyes scanning for the source of the cries. Ahead, they spotted a figure on the ground, a woman soaked to the bone, struggling to lift herself from the muddy puddles. Her eyes widened in shock and relief when she saw them approaching. "Please," she begged, her voice so small against the crashing thunder. "I can't get up. I think I've twisted my ankle." Jake felt a surge of determination. "We're here. Just hold on." He rushed to her side, helping her as best as he could, his hands steady as he eased her onto his lap. Others joined, adding support to her back, while Mary and Liam scoured the ground for anything to help. The rain drummed around them as they worked as a team, each person bearing a piece of shared resolve. As the woman caught her breath, wiping the rain from her eyes, she looked at Jake, gratitude shining through the fear. "Thank you. I thought I was alone out here." Jake felt a warmth spread through his chest. "You're not alone. We've got your back." His words echoed like a promise, a vow that extended beyond just their current situation. The crowd worked to support her, pulling together mutual strength and kindness in a moment that felt pivotal. Jake could sense the shift. This wasn't just about overcoming their fear, but about embracing their humanity. Amidst the chaos, they were being reborn within the storm. Just as they settled her leg and offered her words of comfort, another thunderclap shook the ground, more intense this time. Everyone paused, a fresh wave of tension rippling through the group. Then, the distant sound of sirens began to grow louder, slicing through the storm. The woman's eyes shifted to the horizon, confusion knitting her brow. "Is that? Help is on the way," someone shouted, but the words hung awkwardly. The urgency had shifted again. The arrival of help brought both relief and new worry. Would the authorities break the fragile bond they had just formed? Would they once again feel the separation of their fears? Jake's heart raced. They were at a crossroads. Would the officer arriving on the scene understand what they had fought for in this brief moment? Or would they see only the chaos of scared, drenched souls? Tension coiled like a spring. They were on the brink of something, but would it be the rebirth they needed, or would it tear them apart again? As Jake turned to face the line of lights piercing through the rain, he could only hope that whatever happened next would bring them closer together, not push them back into fear. The flashing lights cut through the rain like beacons of hope. Jake stood resolute, the rising sirens competing with the storm overhead. In that moment, he realized this was their final test, their chance to emerge stronger as tenacious souls intertwined against the chaos. As the officer stepped out of the vehicle, stepping carefully through the mud, Jake felt a mixture of apprehension and determination. This wasn't just about rescue. It was about solidifying everything they had built within the storm's chaos. "Officer, we need you over here," he called, gesturing toward the woman on the ground. The line of flashing lights illuminated the faces of the gathered community, showing their vulnerability but also their newfound resolve. The officer, a woman with steely eyes that questioned everything, approached. Her gaze swept over them, taking in the drenched crowd, the tension sparking in the air. "What happened here?" she demanded, her authoritative tone slicing through the whispers. "She twisted her ankle trying to get away from the storm," Liam answered quickly, stepping forward defensively. "We found her, and we're helping." The officer's stern expression softened slightly as she processed the scene before her. Jake seized that moment, knowing this was not the time to retreat into fear or defensiveness. "We're not just victims of the storm," Jake began steadily, emboldened by their collective experience. "We're more than what is happening out there. We're a community that has been pulled apart by secrets and fear. Tonight, we decided to face that together." A flicker of surprise crossed the officer's face. It was a momentary crack in her armor, and Jake seized it. "This woman and all of us are trying to band together to overcome more than the storm. We've been under a heavy weight for too long, and we want your help to rebuild better, stronger." The officer's vetting gaze fixed on Jake, searching for sincerity. He held her gaze, pouring everything they had shared into his conviction. Finally, she nodded, understanding that the spirit of unity transcended the chaos of their current situation. "I'll coordinate with the paramedics coming in," she said, steadying herself. "And you all should come with us to safety. We can sort out the details there, okay?" A wave of relief washed over the crowd, and Jake sensed the air shifting again, the burden of secrecy replaced by solidarity. Despite the turmoil, compassion began healing these wounds. As they helped the injured woman to her feet, assisting her toward the ambulance, Mary squeezed Jake's arm. "You did it, Jake. We did it. We faced the storm, and it feels different now." Jake nodded, gratitude swelling in his chest. They had come to a point where everything felt possible again. They were more than individuals with hurt. They were partners in recovery, willing to lean into the discomfort of truth. As they gathered in the warmth of the ambulance, Jake couldn't shake this vision of community rebirth. They had all faced their storms, both external and internal, and that struggle had forged a bond forged in honesty and vulnerability. Once everyone was settled and safe, the officer turned back to the crowd. "I know things are chaotic right now, and there will be questions. But before we tackle the storm of what's next, I want each of you to look around. Look at the faces beside you and remember this moment." Jake smiled. The bond was palpable as he watched people turn to each other, the flicker of connection sweeping through. They were no longer fighting against the storm, they were standing together, side by side. As the ambulance pulled away, Jake gazed out at the rain-soaked roads of Willow Creek, finding beauty amid the chaos. They had weathered a storm like no other, facing not only the elements surrounding them, but the emotional tempests they had hidden for far too long. They were transformed. They were a community reborn, ready to confront whatever storms lay ahead, shoulder to shoulder. No darkness could penetrate the light they ignited together, a promise etched into the heart of every person who stood united. Jake knew this was just the beginning. The past would still demand attention, but the future shone bright with possibility, and they would echo that truth in the face of everything. Now, standing here as a renewed family, they could embrace whatever came next with open hearts. As their spirits lifted, Jake took a breath, feeling hope soar within. This storm had brought them chaos, but it had also ignited a revolution of connection. And with that, he felt the call to action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and change lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this message to others who need it. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible journey of transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful message of resilience and unity. You need to be part of this community. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. Your voice matters.